And welcome to the Howard Eskin Show as this is Saturday morning, days before the draft. And we're going to get into that because it's amazing how many people go crazy about all these names and where the guy's sliding, where a guy's going, who's going to be there in the case of Philadelphia Eagles fans, who's going to be there when the Eagles draft, what are the Giants going to do? Whatever the New York Giants do, they're going to screw it up. All right. So whether they're going to take a quarterback at their pick, they're going to screw it up because we know that's what the Giants are. I mean, they got an idiot as a general manager. He made himself look foolish, and Hard Knocks helped him do that. But whatever. What's going to happen? Where are the quarterbacks going to go? Where are the Eagles going to kind of find the right player? And we'll do that with Jon Cooper, who's been with Ourlads for over 30 years. But I'm going to get into Jon, and then there's other things we'll talk about after Jon, which is baseball. There's some fascinating things about baseball and the dumbing down of America. And you're going to love this because it gets dumbed down every day. But first of all, I want to tell you about somebody and people that are really sharp and smart and our wonderful partners and sponsors, Piazza Property Pros. I'm telling you, it's getting to the season. Now you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it in the Philadelphia area on this Saturday because the weather's going to be warm and you're going to say, you know what? I want to get a pool. I want to get my pool renovated. I want to do the right things with Piazza Property Pros, and we'll tell you more about them shortly. Also, one of our great, wonderful partners, Cut the Cord with Jason, and a lot of people are saving a lot of money on their cable, cutting the cable, getting streaming services, and it's far less a month. And we'll tell you about Cut the Cord with Jason shortly. And Audi of Westchester, if you want to get a really nice car, and with a really great selection, that would be Audi of Westchester. But first of all, let me tell you about Piazza Property Pros. All right, because they can do. I'm telling you, that season's going to get. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel it when the weather gets warm, and you're going to feel it as we're doing this show live. You're going to feel it today. Weather's warm. I want to do something with a pool, and Piazza Property Pros can do that. The worst you can do, the best you can do, the worst whatever, you got to talk to them. You got to feel whether it's in your budget. They'll talk to you about how to work it out, renovations. They have a lot of good things that they offer, experts directly, uh, whether it's an in-ground pool, whether it's renovation, 25 years of experience. And that is really important. They specialize in turning your vision into a reality. And what's important is that it's their own people. They don't subcontract, whether it's landscaping, whatever it is, they can do it for you around the house. You got to trust them. Piazza Property Pros. Here's a number: 610 566 2608. 610 566 2608. And I suggest you go to their website and you can check a lot of things out there. PiazzaOutdoor.com. Don't wait. Once the weather gets warmer, everybody starts calling, and then it's not like they can come out within 24 hours. Get ahead of the curve. Piazza Property Pros, and they can take care of it for you. Now, you want to save money on your cable. Yep. Doesn't everybody? Cable bills, they get crazy and crazy and crazier every month. Well, Cut the Cord with Jason will offer you incredible service that will save you lots of money. I mean, we're talking hundreds of dollars. He'll come out to your house, cut the cable off, set you up with less expensive internet service. And with streaming services, now they'll include all the local and national channels. So that's important to understand. They'll still get you to see all the Philadelphia Pro games. That's important to understand. And here's an added extra that cable does not give you. They can hook up a second home if you have a second home, or it's somebody else that you want to hook up to a second home. Jason can set it up. One monthly TV bill for both houses. For more information and to save lots of money, call Jason 215 801 5858. That's 215 801 5858. and you want to drive in a nice vehicle, you want something nice, and you want people that are friendly, no pressure. You just enjoy the experience. That's Audi Westchester. And you can check out their all new facility. It's a state of the art facility, state of the art equipment. And the goal is to make buying or leasing a new and happy and simple experience, pressure free. Since Audi of Westchester is part of the Mainline Automotive Group, you will have access to the largest selection of new and pre owned Audi vehicles in the tri state area. Here's another thing: no tariffs. No tariffs yet on the vehicles. And they have a couple of specials going on that I'm sure you want to at least think about and maybe check out. $5,000 off the EQ5. That's the hybrid model of the Q5. $5,000 off, and on the A5s, $3,000 off. Hey, listen, it's in the tri-state area. Audi of Westchester, located at 1421 Wilmington Pike, or check them out, AudiWestchester.com. That's AudiWestchester.com. All right, lots to talk about today. The draft, I mean, it's days away, depending on when you're watching this or when you're listening to this. We're live on Saturday, but when you're listening, it's days away. And to join us to help us with this is Jon Cooper, who is an associate general manager of Ourlads Guide. And I remember Ourlads Guide for years. They've been doing these things and evaluating draft picks and talent and trying to inform the fans and people out there, and it's probably more than just fans, of the grades of these players, who's good, who's top first round, who's back of the first round, who's beyond the first round. And Jon's been doing this and coaching, been doing it with Ourlads for over 30 years. And he's a former coach. And let's welcome in Jon Cooper. Jon, welcome to the show and thanks. And it has gotten over the years, people going nuts over draft picks. It seems like it gets crazier and crazier every year with everybody wanting to know everything about a player. Have you found it just so much different and crazier over the years?
Well, yeah, there's always been a hardcore of draft fans. Some people back in the day used to be more interested in the draft than the actual season. But now, the draft has gotten so big. It's national television on two networks. It's prime time. Uh, Moving around to different cities, the crowds that show up, it's just incredible. I can remember when we first started doing this, or first started paying attention to the draft. ESPN had it on TV on a Tuesday, and it was like we got to fill a time slot for some programming here, and so that they put the draft on, and
And now the
it's
NFL
incredible.
makes money. They charge the cities where they go for the draft. It used to just be in New York. No, we're not going to do it. We're not making enough money. So now they send it to different, and the cities bid on having the draft in their city. All right, let's get down to it here. All right, everybody looks at the quarterbacks, and that's obviously the focal point. And teams need to get a really good quarterback, or they're not going to be good. You're not going to have a good team without a quarterback. And Jaden Daniels, I think people knew he was good. He wasn't the first quarterback taken, but he had a good year, and we'll see if he continues that. Is there a Jaden Daniels in the draft this year?
No, we don't think so. We don't think there's a player of that caliber. We felt he was the best quarterback in the draft by a lot last year, but that wasn't necessarily the opinion of everybody else. But it turned out that way.
You know what? Okay, so who's the best quarterback is Cam Ward. Why is he the best quarterback to come out of the draft?
Well,
And
he's
well,
got
is
that.
he, in your opinion, is he the best quarterback?
Yes, he is. He's an athletic player. He can create with his feet. He's got a good arm. He can make all the throws, which is important. Um, so he's got the potential to be a quality quarterback, and so we don't see him as the best player in the draft, but he is the best quarterback in the draft. And there's two drafts. There's a everybody else draft, and there's the quarterback draft.
Okay, so now Deion Sanders kid gets probably more hype because he's the son of Deion Sanders. All right. And he's gotten hype all year, and we've heard about it. And anybody that takes him is probably going to have to deal with Deion a little bit. Now, I don't know if that goes into your evaluation, but and you hear, well, he's sliding because teams aren't sure and what they want to do in that position. Where do you think, and is he the second best quarterback in the draft this year?
In our opinion, he is. I think the problem with these two quarterbacks is they've got some holes in their game. I mean, Cam Ward and and Shadur Sanders both are not necessarily great guys in the pocket in terms of pocket presence. Ward can make plays with his feet, which is a big advantage to Sanders. Sanders hasn't really shown that. We think he has potential to do a little bit better that way. But Ward will bail out on the pass rush a little bit quicker than he should. Um, he can scramble, so he can do some things and make a nice release under pressure. Uh, Sanders can do that too. The problem is he doesn't sense the rush very well, and he doesn't move around very well in the pocket. And he takes some sacks when it is time to scramble. He flips out the wrong way sometimes. Um, with a clean pocket, Shadur Sanders is absolutely terrific. He can get the ball to outside the numbers, which is one of the most important throws. He's very, very accurate on that deep ball. And again, like I said, outside the numbers, that 35 to 40-yard intermediate ball outside the hashes, he's deadly. But you've got to give him a clean pocket, or you've got to really work with him on sensing the rush and pocket presence. And those are the things that have to
All
happen.
right, so here's a dynamic, John, which less than I think it's less than 50% of the quarterbacks taken in the top 10 become stars in the NFL. I mean, that number's probably around that. But if he's taken high, that means that team's not very good. So you say he's really good, Sanders is really good in a clean pocket. If he's taken by a team, for instance, the New York Giants, I still don't think they've cleaned up their offensive line. So is that a mistake for a team to take the quarterback when they don't have the offensive line for a quarterback like Sanders, who you say is not one of those guys that's as good on his feet as others?
Yeah, that can be definitely a problem. All you have to do is look at Chicago Bears last year with Caleb Williams. That's exactly what happened to him. They didn't have the offensive line to protect him. He was a guy that was a scrambler, and a lot of his great plays in college were made. In fact, 2/3 of them were made in an extemporaneous mode of off platform. And he wasn't very good and he wasn't that good in a clean pocket anyway. And that's maybe one of the things the Bears were thinking was, hey, you know what, we got to
Mm-hmm.
develop this kid. But by the end of the year, he was looking more at what was coming at him than he was downfield. And so it really hurt his development not to have an offensive line. And so that's a problem for sure.
All right, and I think the defensive line is stronger this year in the draft than the offensive line. Am I correct with that?
Yes,
O-
definitely.
Okay, so and the Eagles, they lost two defensive linemen. They lost Brandon Graham. And I'm going to get to the Eagles here. They lost Brandon Graham, obviously, to retirement, and Josh Sweat. They let go because they'll probably get a third round compensatory pick in a year. So they let him go, and they didn't want to sign him. So I would think the Eagles would like to get an edge rusher. How do you rank the edge rushers? And the Eagles are drafting 32. So unless they trade up, where do you think they have to trade up to get one of the real studs as in the area of edge rusher coming out of college?
Well, looking at how the Eagles play their defense, I think there's a good chance there will be one when they select because it is a strong year. There's good depth in this particular draft, so I think they're going to find one. Trading up, yeah, to get a guy like Mike Green, who I think would be a good fit for them from Marshall. That would be a move they could make. But a guy like Boston College's Donovan Ezeraku, he could be there, very likely will be there as an edge rusher. and I think he would be a good fit. But there's a lot of good edge rushers in this draft
Okay.
that can help him.
There's you hear so many things, and maybe because in the area that I'm in the Penn, it's a Penn State area, but people get caught up with players from all over the country. Abdul Carter, I I hear he could go as high as 3 to the Giants. He's not going to get past 6 or 7. Uh, where does he rate in the edge rushers, in your opinion, the way you've evaluated the players coming out of the draft?
He's the top guy. In fact, there's some people that have said that he's the best player in the draft. I'm not going to go that far, but he's pretty close. If he's not the best player, he's one or two. He's 2 or 3. Let's put it that way.
You know, you see all these different evaluations. Pro Football Focus, and I don't know that I always believe everything they say, but they're another group that evaluates players. They have him as the 5th best edge rusher. He's not that far down the list, is he? In your opinion?
No, no, I don't. Well, that would be a surprise. I'm gonna have to go look at their website. They must have changed it up.
Oh,
uh, Fifth best edge rusher, Abdul Carter. Wow.
well, I see a list, and I don't know when that list was done because everything changes, and I don't know if you haven't gotten enough out of watching a player play his games in college, and you got to worry about the combine and his speed and a play. Can't you? When you evaluate, all right, let me get in. Make the question this: when you evaluate a player, what do you base it, or how much do you base the combine, the pro days, and all the other things as compared to what he did for, in the case of a good team, 12 to 14 games during the season?
Well, the thing about what we look at, it's a lot of things. I mean, the number one thing is what happens on the tape. The tail of the tape is what's important. When you watch video, is this guy a player? That's the first thing you look at. You see a really good football player at the collegiate level. It's different from what he's going to be facing in the NFL. So there's a certain amount of projection that goes on. Abdul Carter. The thing we like about him was he was an off the ball linebacker, tremendously athletic with chase ability. They moved him. They put his hand in the dirt. They taught him how to, or put him on the edge, I should say, hand in the dirt some of the time. They taught him how to rush the passer. He was doing that as a blitzer prior, and he really developed from the middle of the season to the end of the season. He was super. So he developed. He's obviously very coachable. He's got the aptitude to play. That's another factor.
Mm-hmm.
By the end, he was just tremendous. The other thing is the analytics. We look at some of those things. We look at the metrics. We look at speed to pressure. We look at a lot of different things. Those numbers, those mathematical numbers, which I don't understand, they still are an important part of the equation because there's statistics that show this guy with this set of metrics profiles very well in the National Football League, and they're not always right. I mean, there's guys that don't fit the metrics that end up being super football players in the NFL, but the odds are good in a guy like Carter's favor with everything that we're seeing. Not only in the combine is part of that too, but it's not the end all. I mean, the GPS speeds that they use for playing speed are actually more important than those 40 times. But the 40 times is an indicator.
I know we touched on the Eagles, and I said you think they will be able to get a good, if that's what they're going to draft, a good edge rusher where they're picking at 32. Can you really get somebody that you can project to be a starter in the NFL, a really solid starter at 32, or do you really have to move up?
I think there's you can still get a guy there. I think it just depends. If they start coming off the board, which there's oftentimes those runs. Ezra was a guy that we didn't have rated as high back in March, and as we've watched more film, we see some of the things that are coming out. The metrics are starting to show up a little more. We really like him. We think there's a chance he could slip into the top of the second round, and he would be, we think he's going to be there when the Eagles pick. Maybe not. but it just depends on the run. Now, Mike Green is a guy that you would have to trade up, in my opinion, to get. And so, if trading up is something they want to do, they've got a great roster, even without adding. They probably are in a good position to do that. And teams do like to trade down if they don't have the player they want at that spot.
Well, the Eagles have the ability to trade up because they have a lot of draft picks, so they can do it if they see the player they want. Uh, could they still stay in the low 20s? Because to get up beyond that, it really takes a lot. Obviously, if you're going to get a player like Carter, I don't know how you get into the top 10, but can you still get a player somewhere in the low 20s that could be a really good impact player at the edge?
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. I mean, there's it's a good year for those guys. I mean, Mike Green I think is a good fit with the Eagles, and Nick Scorton is a guy that probably is going to be there or could be there. We like him a lot. He's a guy that can slide inside. Depends upon what they're looking for. They've got some guys that are athletic guys out there. Uh, Not necessarily the power players that are on their roster right now, but they're great edge rushers. They got a couple of good ones. Now, getting a guy a little bit of bull rush ability, a guy like Scorton might be helpful.
Uh-huh.
Thing we like about Green is that he does it all. He's got an advanced set of pass rush skill. He can also drop in coverage if you need him to. He'll play your Sam linebacker spot. This is a terrific football player.
All right.
Um,
All right. Let's deal with tackle. I don't know. At some point in the next year, they have to make a decision on whether they're going to re-sign Davis. And he got better. He was obviously a good player coming out of college. So if they decide, like, oh, we're going to get another tackle because we may not sign Davis, can you project somebody that the Eagles could get at tackle? I know it's not as deep as the edge rushers, but could you project somebody that the Eagles could get for tackle?
Well, first of all, in our mind, it's deeper than the edge rushers. We think
Oh, it is. Okay.
this is one of the best classes of defensive tackles we've ever seen. They
Hmm.
invited 40 tackles to the combine. To my knowledge, that's unprecedented. So this is a terrific defensive tackle class, and I think it's more likely that they'll find that player at 32 than an edge rusher. There's some quality players that they could select. Um, Derek Harmon is a guy that we think could be there. T.J. Sanders from South Carolina is a guy that could be there. Tyleik Williams from Ohio State is a quality player. Uh, Alfred Collins from Texas might be a little bit of a reach there. To get the elite guy, you might have to trade up there too. But either way, throughout the draft, you can find starters at the defensive tackle position. So
Uh, I,
they'll find one later on too if they want one.
I see a comment from one of our viewers, listeners, Mark Person. Everybody's got an opinion on a player. Defensive tackle Walter Nolan. Uh, where do you project him, and how good a player do you think he could be?
Well, we think he's the second best tackle. And again, you put these guys in pods. He's one of the top 4 or 5 defensive tackles in this draft, and we think he's going to be long gone by the time the Eagles pick. But we've been surprised before. Sometimes things come out, guys slip. Somebody says, "Well, there's something I really don't like about this guy," and all of a sudden he drops, and then somebody gets a steal.
Is he a top 15 player, Walter Nolan?
We think so. We think he's going to go in that top, right, win that top 15.
So if he slides close to 15 and the Eagles like him, there may be a chance. Uh, it's somewhere between what, 12 and 14?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think we're doing a mock. We're in the process of doing another mock draft right now, and I think he may be gone around. I think he might be gone around 8 or 9.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's a. But again, our mock drafts are just 2 or 3 guys that are doing it, selecting, working with each other on it, and deciding where we think a guy's going to go. And so We don't have a clue. We have a clue, but that's it.
All right. All right. So in your mock draft, and I'm always interested in the Giants because they kind of screw it up and they're at number three. I can't believe that they'll take a quarter. They made the mistake when they took. Saquon Barkley's a great player, but they needed an offensive line. It was never going to work. It was never going to work. Uh, and then they drafted a quarterback at number six, and they still needed an offensive line. When in your mock draft, give me the first five. Have you broken it down yet? The first five in your mock draft.
Oh, you mean the first five players?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can tell you the most recent one. We've got Carter going, starting with the Giants. We've got Carter, going to the Giants.
Okay, and that would be at number three. That
That
would
would
be at
be
number
number
three.
three. Cam Ward to Tennessee, Travis Hunter to Cleveland. Then we've got Ashton Jenney going to New England, and Mason Graham going to Jacksonville, the defensive tackle from Michigan.
So Cleveland takes who? Who would Cleveland take? In
Travis
your
Hunter is a cornerback wide receiver from Colorado.
Okay,
Uh,
and I wanted to get into Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter says, yeah, I love the way these players make demands. Just go in the NFL and play. I mean, stop. If I don't play, both ways, I don't want to go to a team. Is he good enough? Forget about the number of plays. No team wants to do that. You're more chance of injury. Where is he better? Probably more effective on the defense, but where is he better, defense or offense?
you know what? That's a tough call. If it's me, I'm going to play him on defense. He's going to be a cornerback for me, and I'm going to use him as a situational third wide receiver. He won't take all the snaps at wide receiver, but he will take the snaps at corner. Now that's me. He's posturing like I want to play both ways all the time,
Yeah,
and I
I love
don't
these guys.
I don't know if that's realistic. 80s. I can remember. I'm going way back here, but I'm thinking of Roy Green when he played for the Cardinals, and he played safety and as a nickel, and he had interceptions and touchdown passes in 3 games, and he played as a situational guy on both sides of the ball before becoming a full-time receiver. So it's not easy to do, and that may be something he finds out. The team finds out. Give him a shot to do this, and then all of a sudden you may find out, hey, you know what? I'm really better for me to be a primary wide receiver and a nickelback or a dime back situational, or vice versa.
All right, so let's get to the. It's kind of interesting. Well, you think about the sophisticated offenses and defenses. How do you get ready for offense if you're playing defense? But that's another story. He's
That,
talented
that's
enough.
that's part of the problem. That's part of
Yeah,
the issue.
he's talented enough, but these guys just can't make the man stop already. All right, the Eagles' defensive back could be a possibility. How do you rate the cornerbacks coming out of the draft?
It's good. We don't think there's the elite cornerback that maybe you've seen in the past, but they're good. Hunter is a really terrific corner, and we
Right.
think he's the top corner in the draft.
Obviously. Yeah.
But you've got Will Johnson from Michigan, who's a really good player. Uh, J.D. Barron was the DB of the year. He won the award for that, and he's a solid corner as well. Trey Amos, Siobhan Ravel is a guy we thought would be maybe the top cornerback taken, but he's coming off an injury, and he's right there. First round grade on him
Hmm.
from East Carolina. We really like him. He's got good size, speed. He's recovering from an injury, ACL, so that's going to be a factor. Hairston from Kentucky is another really solid corner. We think there's a tier of cornerbacks that all could have first round grades. There's about 8 of them. So yeah, this is a really good year, especially at the top of the draft for corners that are solid players that can come in and help you right away.
Well, again, that's at the top of the draft. Hey, when you win a Super Bowl or you're in a Super Bowl, you're not going to draft very high. Kansas City really got lucky when they were able to trade from 27, I think, to 11 to get Patrick Mahomes. That's really difficult to do. You have to give up so much. And Now, I think, and I don't know how much you evaluate that, the salary cap kind of teams have to judge, all right, where can we get a player and possibly not sign a player to try to keep some maneuverability in the salary cap? And that's part of the issue I see for teams. It's just, who do you let go who's going to make a lot of money? I mean, Jordan Davis was one of the guys. I don't know what they're going to do, but that could be a possibility if they get a defensive tackle. Another question, John. The transfer portal, I think, is a joke. Uh, the NIL is a bigger joke. How about the quarterback for Tennessee, that nitwit, who decides, well, I won $4 million from Tennessee, and then he holds out and doesn't go to spring practice, and then he goes to UCLA and he's going to make less money than he probably would have made at Tennessee. How much of a problem is that when you try to evaluate players because they don't want to get hurt, obviously, because they want to get their money if they're coming out? Is that a problem, I guess, for you to evaluate players?
Well, it's to a degree, it is. You wonder, but there's always been a little bit of that going on. That's because with NIL or notwithstanding, there have been guys that didn't want to play. They didn't want to get hurt. You always saw a little bit of that towards the end of the year, guys dropping out of bowl games even before this became an issue. So, and you know what? As an NFL evaluator, you can take that into consideration, but then you want to get in that guy's head. That's why they do these interviews at the combine and bring some of the guys in their top 30 visits to really get in their head and see where this guy's coming from. They also do some investigative work, and they have reports that come in where they've got private detectives, that do work to find out what this guy's really all about, and as a person, to see if they can fit that
Mm-hmm.
character can fit into their room. So there's a lot that goes into that, and so stuff that we don't have access to. So we're just looking at the tape
Right.
and reading the same things that the other people are reading, and we get information too. We have some contacts that will tell us these things. We work with some of the different companies that do some of this work. So we're getting some information, but it's still not what the NFL has.
All right. We have another question. Ross and Found. That's what he's going by, whatever he is. Will Kevin Winston Jr. be available in the second round, in your opinion?
That is going to be an interesting call. We think he will be, but I don't know how. I don't know how high in the second round. I think he's going to be a higher pick than a lot of people expect. He's coming off an injury too, and he could have been a first round pick, a late first round pick. And there's some people that really really like him. So I like him. Well, he's one of our top four safeties, and we think he's probably a second round pick, but I think it's going to be relatively high in the second round.
And the Eagles aren't afraid. I mean, they get their doctors to check these guys out and give them a
Mm-hmm.
physical. Cooper DeJean was a first round pick if he hadn't gotten injured at Iowa. They got him in the second round. And what a terrific year that he. But so some teams get frightened by guys with injuries and they don't want to get Josh Sweat. I remember uh, I think he went in the fifth round because I think he went to Florida State. He was injured, I think, his last year, and the Eagles got what was a pretty good pick in the fifth round. So injuries don't worry the Eagles. So if people worry about injuries, then he probably will slip, as you said, to the second round, correct?
Yeah, that's a good assessment. But injuries notwithstanding, he's top of the second round most likely. Bottom of the first is kind of where we see him going. Solid football player, one of four really really good safeties.
Okay, when you look at the draft, there's always a team, good or bad, and some teams, you know, reach, reach for a player. What player, and and I don't know if you look at teams when you went through your mock draft, you go through the mock draft to say, well, this team needs it. Will they reach for this player? What player do you think, and what team do you think will reach for a player?
And again, reach is a relative thing because if I'm in a draft room and I'm rating players and I'm not listening to any of the noise. I'm just looking at our evaluations. We might think a guy is a really solid player, whereas the rest of the league, might not. And so all
Hmm.
the pundits and the guys like ourselves that are evaluating these guys, we've decided, this is where this guy slots. And the reality of it is, it's really not like that. It's like we got 10 or 15 players that we could take with this pick. The value is very similar, and this year more than ever before, you're going to see guys that are rated in the 50s that go in the first round simply because the value is so similar, more so than I've
Hmm.
ever seen. So I don't know if reach is a correct thing. There's one thing: Jalen Walker is a polarizing player. He's a linebacker, edge guy from Georgia, and
They like Georgia players.
yeah, okay, so we don't have him ranked as high as a lot of people do because he's played two positions. He's a little undersized for the edge, and he's very, green, so to speak, at playing as an off-the-ball linebacker. So where does he play? Is he a Swiss Army knife? Those things don't always work out that well. So we think he's a first-round talent,
Hmm.
but we don't see him as in the top 10. But there are some teams we understand that are debating on whether or not to take him, in the top 10.
All right.
So that's going to be interesting.
Mason Taylor, who's the tight end out of LSU. Question here is, could he go in the second round? And probably will no higher than the second round, because the Eagles possibly could look for a tight end. If Dallas Goedert is here this year, and I like Dallas, but I don't think they're going to sign him beyond this year. Uh, what kind of player is Mason Taylor?
He's a solid football player. He's a physical player. He's got good hands. He's got speed, decent speed as a route runner. He's not a great inline blocker. None of these guys are.
Hmm.
Maybe a couple of them are, but he's still a willing blocker. He can position on the edge. He could he's a decent football player, and we think he's one of the top tight ends in the draft. Probably the third, fourth, fifth tight end, depending upon how you look at it.
You know what's amazing? The Eagles. You look at, they use tight end as an escape hatch for Jalen Hurts. However, because of the running game they have and the success, they like a tight end that can block, and it doesn't block well. It doesn't sound, by your evaluation, that Mason Taylor is as good a blocker as some of the other people could be.
Well, he might be one of the better blockers. In all honesty, it's just these guys are not. The tight ends in these days in the draft, you just don't find great blockers anymore. They're receivers. There's a couple guys though that are, better than others, and they're a little bit more down the line usually.
Mhm.
It's hard to find a guy that's elite at both. And Mason Taylor does check some boxes as being able to develop into a good blocker. Um, there's it's a good year for tight ends overall. The depth is good. There's some guys down the line that can develop into really good football players. And developing as a blocker, that's something that NFL teams have to be able to coach.
When you looked, uh, what was amazing, the transfer portal has hurt college football. And there's some players that won't play in the bowl games because of that. Uh, because it's money, it's the transfer portal. Do you change your evaluation of a play? A lot of coaches, and this is old school, a lot of coaches like to look at heart and desire. Do you change? And if he's not going to play in a bowl game because he's worried about his transfer portal and his money, do you change your evaluation on a player when a player does that?
It's tempting to do that, but we don't. And, unless we pick up on something that we really don't like. I've sat in on interviews with players, with scouts, years ago, going to the combine. I did some work with some teams part time. And, one of the questions, there's some questions that are very specific that they ask. Hey, who can you take hard? They ask the coaches, they ask the trainer, what kind of player is he? Can he take hard coaching? Can he handle criticism? Is he somebody we can work with? What kind of attitude does he have? All these things come into play. And you can ask the player those things, but you really have to ask the people that work with him to find that out. And you hope that the coaches and trainers and the people who have knowledge of this
Mhm.
are honest with you. And if they're not honest with you, that doesn't bode well for them too. And I've talked to coaches. I've known I was a college coach, and I've been in on these kinds of things from both sides of the coin. So I know how it works. And I remember one Big Ten coach telling a team about a player, you don't want him. And this was, and they still took him in the first round. So how much do you listen? I knew that coach very well, and I was shocked to hear him say that. But he says, "Hey, I'm honest. This guy, he does one thing, and it's rush the passer. He doesn't want to play the run, and he doesn't want to give it effort except on third downs."
You know what, John? You mentioned coaching, and you were a college coach for many years. How much different is it now? In college, usually you still have a little more control than you do in the pros. In football, probably better control than you do in other sports. Basketball, the NBA is a complete joke. But how much different or tougher do you think it is for coaches nowadays to coach these top star players?
It's tough at all levels these days because of the portal. Um, you know, I got out of coaching before the portal, and
Right.
just before the portal. So, and I talked to some of my predecessors, some of the guys that followed me at the school I was at, and the schools I was at. And the thing they say is, these kids, if they're not going to play right away, they're ready to transfer in training camp. And it's just incredible. And they've had that happen. Guys, guys jump out and they want to go to another school right during camp. They usually get talked out of it, but there's, we've heard. I've had an agent tell me that his player, because now they have agents now, in college,
Yeah, I
and
know.
so this has been crazy. And this agent had to talk a player out of transferring. He said, "I don't want to play two gap. I only want to play one gap. I don't want his defensive tackle." And he had to talk him into staying. You're going to go anywhere, and you're going to have to play a little bit of two gap. You're going to play some one gap. You can't tell them the system. It has to fit you. You have to fit the system. This is the agent now smartly telling the player to stay put. So I'm not sure all agents do that.
All right. I saw a question up by one of the people that sent in a question. Who do you think I don't know why he's a Commanders. It must be a Commanders fan. Michael Moorhead. Where do you see the Commanders going in the first round? And actually, they're too deep in the first round to really get a good, solid projection. But what do you think they're going to do?
Well, it's a lot of it's gonna depend on, obviously who's available.
Right.
But we think they need some help in the secondary. They could use somebody on the edge. They could use a safety. From what we can tell, and so we project that they might look at one of those safeties. In the draft, like an Emin Wari, if he's sitting there, as a possibility. Um, they could look at an edge guy too. An Ezraku, Mike
Mm.
Green, somebody like that. That could be a choice. You're going to take the best player available at a position of need, and so that's where what we see the Commanders doing. We think they need some help on defense in particular. They could probably use another wide receiver to help the situation, but cornerback, safety, edge rusher, possibly a linebacker, defensive tackle. Those are all things they could use to shore up that defense to get just a little bit better as far as that goes.
Best player available is always the best way to go. Because you're going to need that player at that position at some point anyway, correct?
Yeah, and what we like to say is best player available at a position of need. And the reason we say that is that let's say you've got a quarterback, or let's say you're stacked, you're too deep, and you've got guys under contract at a certain position. Sometimes those guys that are elite, you're going to take them off your board because you're not going to take them because there's not enough money in the salary cap to afford all those guys eventually. So you're going to have to
Mm-hmm.
fill those needs. So if you've got 5 or 6 needs and everybody's got those going into the draft, you're going to take the best player available at that need position.
All right, John, tell people where they can, the website for Ourlads Guide. And again, I told people, and Ourlads has been around probably as long as I've been in radio, and that's in radio a long time, over 40 years for Ourlads Guide. You've been there, I think, over 30 years. Where can they find it on the internet, and uh, how can it become available to them?
Um, Go to the Ourlads website, ourlads.com, and on the left-hand side at the top, there's a little click to say buy draft guide. If you want the draft guide, that's where to go. I mean, it's getting a little tight, close to the draft to get it mailed to you, but we, also have PDF copies that we can send you via email. And the thing that we love about the book, and our subscribers love about the book, is it's a resource for later years. You're watching a game 2 years from now. Ooh, what did our lad say about this guy? And we have reports on over 300 players in there, and a ranking of about 850 to 860 players. So you're going to have the majority of the guys that are going to go into the NFL, in our book that you're going to be able to use for years to come. There's some interesting stuff in there. The depth charts. That's where you go for depth chart information. Is our website.
Okay. All right, Jon, I appreciate your time. It's going to be crazy because there's probably going to be trades before the draft. There's going to be trades in the first round, and then everything just all these. Chris Sims said I had him on my last show. He says qualified opinions by unqualified people.
And maybe we're all that way. I don't know. But the funny thing is, one trade. It takes one trade to screw up a mock draft. And
I
so
know.
mock drafts are fun, but they're an exercise in futility in some ways.
Yeah. Hey, Jon, it was fun talking to you today. Good luck, and I'm sure we'll talk in the future. Thanks so much, Jon. Jon Cooper.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks. It is crazy. All right, we got a lot more to do this morning on the Howard Eskin Show. If you have questions, and actually you want to be part of the show, we'll send out a link to have you be part of the show. Now you can go on camera or off camera. You can do it either way. Some people are sensitive about being seen, but if you want to do it, we'll send out a link and you can do it. But there's some things that I really want to address, and I will address them. And if you have any more questions and you don't want to join in and just want to send a question, I'm sure I can answer it for you one way or the other, and deal with it. And I want to touch on the point I made on social media the other day about AJ Brown. People don't pay attention to what you say and what's going on, and I want to address that as well. But first, I want to talk about our partners, and I'm going to start off with Audi of Westchester, because they have a lot going on right now. Because they have a larger selection of Audi vehicles in the area, because they're a part of the Mainline Automotive Group, you're going to have access to the largest selection of new and pre-owned Audi vehicles. It's a new state-of-the-art facility it's on Wilmington Pike, 1421 Wilmington Pike. And now there's no tariffs, as you see, no tariffs. And on the EQ5, which is the hybrid of the Q5, $5,000 off as we speak, $3,000 off the A5. They're just really friendly, good people. And I ask people, if you're going to go in there, go to the the manager of the new and pre-owned. Got the same first and last name. I'm not going to tell you because I want you to ask him. Same first and last, but there's all the people there. I've met and a lot of friendly people, and it's really it's a nice environment when you go to buy an automobile. I'm going to give you the location again: 1421 Wilmington Pike, or check them out on the internet, AudiWestchester.com. That's AudiWestchester.com. Now I want to talk about Piazza Property Pros. You're going to start feeling the warm weather. And as we speak, you're going to have warm weather on this day that we did the live broadcast of the show. And obviously, it's up forever on social media, on all 7 platforms. And they're all listed: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube. But whatever. You're going to find the weather's going to get warmer and you're going to say, you know what? Maybe I do want to do a pool. Maybe I want to do a renovation of a pool. But Piazza Property Pros can do that for you. Whether it's a new in-ground pool, whether it's a renovation, they have over 25 years of experience. The pools are beautiful. I mean, what a great job. I've had work done on mine by Piazza, and you should turn your vision into a reality. Here's a very important part of Piazza. They don't subcontract. It's all their people, whether it's landscaping, excavation, fencing, whatever it is, pool maintenance. You can trust Piazza Property Pros to deliver exceptional results on time within your budget. Here's a number: 610-566-2608. That's 610-566-2608. Or check them out on the internet, piazzaoutdoor.com. Let Piazza Property Pros make your backyard into something that you've always wanted. And you want to save money on your cable. I've got the guy. I got a guy. I know a guy. And this is the guy. All right. Jason. Cut the cord with Jason. He offers incredible service. Save you hundreds of dollars a month on your cable. Well, come out. Cut your cable off. Set you up with less expensive internet service. A lot of people have taken him up on this, and they're really happy. The streaming services include all your national and local channels. You get all your Philadelphia Pro games. If you have a second home or you want a second home hooked up, it's all part of the one charge, one monthly bill for that. And Jason can set it up with only one monthly TV bill for both houses. For more information and to save lots of money, and to save, I mean, obviously, who doesn't want to do that, right? Call Jason, 215-801-5858. That's 215-801-5858. All right. Right now, let me, I'll address the A.J. Brown situation in a second. The Phillies. I saw clips on ESPN. I don't watch ESPN much, but when you see the highlights and they have home runs of the day, I see more pitchers throwing the ball down center city, right down the center of the plate. Bryce Harper's home run on Friday night. I mean, the pitcher might say, hey, here's a pitch for you. Just take a big swing at it. And he sure enough did. And he hit a home run. The Phillies, at least Rob Thompson's now has Stott in the leadoff spot. I'm not a Schwarber fan in the leadoff spot, but he changes that with pitchers. But whatever the case, they still don't make enough contact. They're a good team. Are they good enough to win a World Series? I don't think not right now. I don't think so, but they're a good team. But I want you to listen something. And it's amazing how it doesn't change over years. Ted Williams, who I was fortunate enough to have on a radio show at one time and talk to him a few times, had an interview with Bob Costas. I want to play this. I want you to listen. He's so sharp when it comes to hitting. And tell me whether you think anything's changed these days. Let's, Joe, let's play.
That
Ted
annoys
Williams.
you the most about the modern game?
The lack of development of the hitters. And the give-up attitude of every single major league club, pretty near, of saying, we can't teach hitting. You may not be able to teach hitting, but there's no way that you can improve any hitter in this game.
You mentioned DiMaggio.
Yep.
You're always linked with him. He was voted in 1969 the greatest living player. You each have your own separate mystique. Have you ever felt a twinge of resentment toward Joe?
Not a bit. In fact, I voted for Joe DiMaggio as the greatest player I'd seen. And they asked, it's a good question because I've never been asked this. And they said, why did you answer this way? And I said, because I was there. I saw him. Now, Mays, when you say DiMaggio, you say Mays, you say DiMaggio. It's two terrifically wonderful ball players. Great. And of course, but in my book, the players I saw, and I didn't see Simmons, and I didn't see Fox. I did see Greenberg. I did see Fox and Greenberg. But I did see these other fellows even more years. But you take Mays, and you take Aaron, and you take Mantle, and you take DiMaggio, and you take Frank Robinson. There's one other, Stan Musial. By God, in the history of baseball, you're not going to find many players better than that.
DiMaggio could run and field better than you, but there's no question you were the better hitter.
So could Mr. Mays, Mr. Aaron, and all the rest of them.
But none of them could hit with you. Even Stan at 331, none of them could hit with you.
Well, if you go on just statistics, that may be true, but I know those guys were tremendous, and I saw them over the course of 12 years, 10, 12 years, and I just say you can stack those guys up with anybody.
You know, it hasn't changed. Now, that interview was probably done in the late 80s, probably early 90s. And Ted Williams is a brilliant guy. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you a photograph. And I still can't believe to this day that I had all these people together. As you look at the screen, on the left, that's Steve Carlton. That's me in the center. It's at a remote for WIP. And that's Ted Williams on the right. They came to a remote in New Jersey. It's the first time Steve Carlton and Ted Williams ever met, but he was so articulate in talking about the game. But here's what I want to tell you. It was a fascinating time, and I wish we saved the audio, but back then we didn't save a lot of audio. But here's what I want to tell you about baseball players, and we can come back to me now. It hasn't changed. Players have their own idea about hitting. What does the hitting coach do? I don't even know. He gives them advice. I don't even know what he does. Players have the Phillies, and Rob Thompson talks about contact and strikeouts in the analytics world don't make as much difference. You know, what Ted Williams said hasn't changed. It started, and now it's probably worse. What does a hitting coach do? I have no idea what a hitting coach is. He tells you. I remember when Milt Thompson, who unfortunately got fired by the Phillies, when he was a hitting coach for the Phillies, and he asked players, 2 strikes, choke up a little on the bat, shorten your swing. Nope. It's all about home runs. All about home runs. Those comments from Ted Williams are true today, and that's why I wanted to play it. All right, now I want to address the AJ Brown situation. Well, I saw a story the other day on social media, and a lot of times you take social media stuff with a grain of salt. Oh, the Eagles are trying to trade Devontae Smith. You know, I don't know that to be the case. All right, so I can address that. I have no idea. I would find Devontae Smith is such a good person and a good player, but sometimes you never know what names come up. But in that same, and I put out a post on social media. It was on Twitter and Facebook. And I said, I've heard the name of AJ Brown. That doesn't mean they're going to trade him. I've heard, and I was told by people, a couple of people, that AJ Brown's name has come up in trade talks. Now, how has it come up? Maybe the other team asked, what would it take to get AJ Brown? Maybe the Eagles asked, you know, what do you think? You know, where could we move up in the draft for AJ? It doesn't matter. It's just I don't know how it's come up, but it came up. That doesn't mean people get on me. Oh, what are you, crazy? What are you, an idiot? I'm not trading him. I'm not trading AJ Brown. Don't you understand? I put out what I hear. And of course, Sports Talk Radio now, they still need my help. You know, they make an issue of it. I don't think the Eagles would be able to get enough for AJ Brown if they even thought seriously about trading him because of what he means to the team. But his name did come up. Now, did it come up from another team? Did it come up from the Eagles? I don't know, but it came up. But that doesn't mean they're going to trade him. Don't you understand? And all kinds of names come up. All kinds of names come up before the draft because people talk about these things because that's what they do before the draft. All right. Shout out to the Flyers. And I know Danny Briere had a news conference on Saturday morning. I didn't hear it, obviously, because I was doing the show. But I think the Flyers know what they're doing, unlike the Sixers. They do know what they're doing. So I give them credit, and I trust Danny Briere, and I trust Keith Jones to get it done right. And if people want to send me, I want to get one of those guys on the show. Are there enough people out there interested in the Flyers to do that? And you can send your comments, and I'll listen to what you have to say. The NBA playoffs are underway. It's like these playing games are a joke. It's just more TV. How about Adam Silver say, even though the ratings are down, the NBA it's made progress. Well, the ratings are down because it's most of the games are garbage, and half the players don't even play in a lot of the games. It's a joke. I saw, who was it that I saw? Steve Kerr. I looked up his playing record, who is very outspoken, and I think he's a terrific coach. And it was a really solid player when he played with in the NBA and played with Michael Jordan. He played 82 games 4 straight years. Does anybody play 82 games the whole season? And then he obviously played playoffs. Anybody play all the games? No, nobody. Nobody, no. This load management nonsense. All right. And I'm going to leave you with today. I know it's going to be a wild week of trades. We're going to be on Wednesday night right before the draft. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that live on Wednesday night. And obviously, the podcast stays up there forever. But before before I leave you today, America has issues, really has issues. It just, do the kids learn anything in school? I can't believe that they don't even teach kids how to write anymore because everything's done with computer. You ask somebody to write you a note, There's a lot of young, I call them kids, younger people, kids in school, they don't know how to write. But this is beautiful. These interviews on the street, and you're going to tell me if there's not uh, trouble in America. There's something not right in America. Listen to these questions and these non-answers by the youth of America.
Do you know what year the War of 1812 was?
What year the War of 1812 was? I did it in school. I'm trying to remember. I forgot. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yes, like when do you think it was? Was it a while ago or recently?
A while ago.
Guess a year.
1980, possibly.
Yes, it was around there. Do you know what state Utah is in? Utah? Nebraska? Yes. The world wars there were?
4? I don't know.
4 or 5?
4.
Oh my God, are we in trouble? The youth of America. There's really nothing more I could add to that. It's just sad and pathetic. Come on, it's got to be better. When was the War of 1812? Well, I don't even have to explain it. That was the best. What state is Utah? It's just, are you kidding me? You're kidding. It's just unbelievable. But anyway, thanks for joining the show this morning. We'll be back on Wednesday night at 7:30. Everybody have a great week. We're getting closer and closer to the draft. And thanks as always. And I'm telling you, no more than a phone call to any one of these people. But Audi, you want to actually, you might want to go out to Audi and Piazza. Thanks to our partners, Piazza Property Pros. Great people. They know what they're doing. And don't wait until the last minute and say, well, how come you can't come out tomorrow? Because you waited too long. Just check it out. It just takes a call. And you want to save money? You can save money. Cut the cord with Jason. You could do that. But and that takes a call. Piazza, just make a call and set something up, and you can go out and check it out. And then Audi of Westchester, you want to stop in their showroom. Nice people. I might stop by there on this Saturday. You could get a cup of coffee, get a little snack, whatever. But I appreciate everybody out there that's watching, that's listening. Subscribe to YouTube, and you will be notified when the the show comes up, the Howard Eskin Show, the podcast come up, and all the social media platforms, every one of them. We're on like 7 of them now. Why listen to the radio? Actually, I don't even have to tell you that because most people don't. Many people, I don't know if it's most, many people don't listen to the radio anymore. They listen to podcasts, and hopefully this is one of them you listen to. Thanks to everybody for joining the Howard Eskin Show today. Have a great day, a great week, and enjoy the weather when it's warm. All right, and no rain. Have a good one. Take care.